What's up, guys? Dan is in Battleborn, and I'm so glad to bring it to you. I want to just first off just thank the Gearbox community, the community managers for shipping me over a copy of being able to play the early access, so I can continue and will actually begin working on some content for you on this series. We're gonna start our character basically walkthrough on each of the 25 Battleborn heroes. First one we're going to choose is Oscar Mike. I have a build, for the most part, we haven't maxed him out yet, but I have a build going where it's basically as much DPS and as much stealthiness as possible. I kind of like this build a lot. We're going to walk you through the build as well, show you all the perks and the few cons there is, but pretty much all perks. So check out Oscar Mike. So first off, what we're going to be using is a sneak attack. The two options we have right now are impact trigger and sneak attack, and we have the helix. This is called the helix. Basically, it looks like a DNA tree, but the helix is set to about 10. So what we're going to choose first off on this build is a sneak attack. What it basically does is when you go into cover, when you come out of cover, you get an increase to your damage of your assault rifle. So we're going to pick that off first. It's really good. You can just see right here it does a lot of damage. It also can help you get out of a tight pickle right there. You know, I had a few enemies. I was about to die. I came out with extra damage. You see it does about 37 right out the bat. Then it goes back down to its normal DPS of about 20, 25. So it gives you about an extra 5 or 10% damage depending on the enemy. So far, you know, the build that I have just off the bat, you know, you can just tank a lot of the minimal enemies. As you can see, I'm just kind of decimating these guys, and we're not having any of the skill trees loaded out right now. This is just base. Once you begin playing Oscar Mike, this is for the most part the DPS you will be seeing. There's a few perks that we have included on there. And that we'll go into more detail later, called the loadout, which you can kind of add on attack, health regeneration, things like that. But for the most part, coming out the gate, this is what Oscar Mike is going to be basically doing. He can pretty much hold his own. He's not so much a tank like a character we'll be going through later on, like Montana, but he does hold his own. The next two things we have are basically frag grenades. The two options you have are just increased damage or basically area of effect damage. The choice that we want to go with on this build is nades on nades. Basically, we want to control the area more, get more out of our nades. So out of the two, I just chose to go with nades on nades. If you want to go with just overall increased damage, you can go with just frag grenades. It just depends on the enemies that you're playing against. If you're playing against, you know, a boss, you know, you might be doing well with having just overall just DPS on the grenades, but area effect, I prefer nades on nades. So the next thing we'll be using as well is red dot sight. It just depends on your preference, really. I just prefer to have increased movement speed when I'm aiming down sights. With this character, you're more than likely going to be aiming down sights a lot of the time. So you want to have as much movability while you're in aiming down sights as possible. So out of the two, personal preference really, but in me, I would prefer to have just aiming down sights and increase movement speed while aiming down sights with this character. It's going to allow you to move around, not get hit as much, for giving the ability to keep some of your maneuverability, mobility, pretty much mobility of the build is also what we want. We want to have, you know, as much DPS as possible with perks, with loadouts. We want to have, you know, stuff to kind of hide and regenerate health, regenerate shields, anything like that, and also just using all of our skills and abilities to the best of our abilities, and, you know, making very, very useful time out of the time we're in Battleborn. This is the character I feel like I might be able to use a lot solo. So the further we go down in the tree, I feel like we'll be able to have more perks opened up. Next up, the two options that we have are tactical espionage action and back in a jiff. Out of the two, you know, it's really personal preference. Sometimes I pick tactical espionage. Sometimes I pick back in a jiff. Activating stealth gives your shields to come back. This build, I kind of like that, having the safety of once I go into my shields. My once I go into the stealth, my shields give me a really big boost. I get a lot of that back really quickly. You can also add a couple loadout perks if you want to be more safe. You can have that. And building this right so far is what we have is you get a lot of health back. You get your shields back immediately once you go into stealth. When you come out of stealth, you put a lot of DPS out. So it's good to have interior and outerior motives when you're shooting anything. So I like to have it where I go into stealth, I can get my health back, get my shields back. When I come out, I'm more of a tank or more of a wannabe tank if I like to be, just pushing out more DPS immediately. So, I mean, it's really personal preference, but I'm trying to make this build so anybody can go out the bat, first playing Battleborn, have a pretty good experience. I know everybody's not going to be playing multiplayer, so you might want to play solo. So that's why I wanted to pick somebody like Oscar Mike. He seems like a pretty good guy for solo, and so far I've been able to tacticalize. Is that even a word? Basically, just make a few builds, and this is one of the ones that we were playing on stream, and I was like, you know, I kind of think this is the route that I want to go with my character. So there's a lot of things that you can pick up that'll help this build. You know, cooldown, speed boost, overshield, health regeneration, shield regeneration. A lot of those things that you're gonna find just from killing enemies and picking up orbs or picking up loot will increase the overall build. I know there's a couple perks that when you pick up things, you increase your cooldown rate. So it's nice to have that as well. As much DPS as possible, as much survivability as possible, and kind of combining those two things together with the environment is a, when done right, is a beautiful harmony. So we got a few people right here that we're going to have to deal with. They're reminding me of another character, Wraith. I love the Borderlands intros that they kind of kept to kind of keep some of the Borderlands flavor. Henchman is one of the first bosses you fight in this mission. Um, there's a few things you got to worry about, which is all those little orbs that can kind of come out of nowhere, and these little guys that'll take a lot of your health away if not paying attention to a lot of these guys. So you got to be paying a lot of attention. You know, you want to use those your shields as much as possible. That's why and the cooldown can be a lot better, you know, depending on the loadout that you have. The cool thing about that we tested on stream and that we theorized that it would have happened is that if you choose, first I will go with the hollow points, of course. Out of the two, hollow points are going to be better because you're going to penetrate the shields. If you want to just have a bigger mag size, you can choose that. For me, I'd rather be able to take out the shields quicker and take out the health quicker. Hollow point is the way to go. So back to what we were saying, there is I don't know if it's a hidden perk, but basically when you go into stealth mode, any DPS you shoot out is increased. So what we decided to do and test, which actually happens, is when you go into stealth mode, you can actually instead use your middle boom thing, and we're going to show you right here, which is a laser of a missile attack. It basically does increase damage. It did about 363 without the stealth mode. I think you do about 271, 300. So it's very helpful, and I didn't realize that until we started trying it on stream. When you go into stealth mode, anything that you come out using is going to get that damage buff. So it's nice to have, you know, you go into stealth mode, you get your shields back, you get in a better position, you pop that on, and then you just take out the DPS, take out the shields with a higher DPS over time. So this boss is you know, a more of hot cat and mouse. You want to take out one of the henchmen pretty quickly, or at least get them real low, and then focus on the other one. And once you do that, you know, you're pretty done with the first part of the story. This is kind of the first mini boss of the story, and you get some decent loot. You know, you can. I'm not exactly sure if you can get a legendary from this character. We're going to do some more farming of this guy to see if there's a chance that he will drop a legendary, one of the henchmen, or maybe even just a high ranking gear The highest I've seen him drop is, I believe, a blue. Most of the time he drops greens. Sometimes he drops white sand greens. But it just depends. We'll, of course, grind some more to try to see if we can get any legendaries to drop from this guy. He might not have a drop, but we won't know until we actually start grinding him and seeing what the possibilities of having his loot, be. We wanted, it's one of the things that as a looter shooter, you want to find out what loot that people have. And I feel like this boss has something. So we're going to try to test him out in the future and see. So it looks like I'm about to die. I go back into stealth mode. You see the shields immediately start regenerating. It gives me enough time for my health to come back as well. And kind of help out that right there. You see right there, I get the increased damage. First henchman is dead. It does a lot of damage, those missiles, if all of them hit. I think it shoots about 10. I could be wrong. It shoots somewhere between 9 or 10 things. So this guy is almost dead. Of course, if we are worried about it, we're going to go back into stealth mode, because why not keep the increased damage? But I think we're just going to go ahead and finish him off right there. And we're going to check out our loot. All right, so the henchman I did, I don't think we got any loot. This is what the gear is going to look like. That little green thing is what the kind of loot drop that they have. Sometimes I've seen it drop blue, but that's the highest I've seen drop so far. There's a possibility that we can get it a little higher. I'm not too sure. The next step up that we have is far-flung frags or stealthy shields. Simple, we're going to go with shields. It just increases our overall maneuverability and survivability in this build. Shields are very important. It appears that these guys can break shields pretty easily. That's why there's so many overshields that I come across with this build. I feel like that might be with any character, but let's just show you this guy. So Jeff is our spider tank, and we're basically having to kill him just very, very differently. One thing I really like about this game so far is that none of the bosses are even remotely the same, besides, of course you got to kill them. However, you have to sometimes kill them in different ways. With the first boss, we had to knock off the shields and then just, do DPS and stay alive. This guy, in order to do DPS to him, we have to push him out by blowing them out with toxins. We have a few options here. We have the velocity ammo, which is what we're going to go for, which just overall increases the ammo damage. You have a couple disruptor rounds. You can choose that sometimes. Out of the three options, I normally go with the middle or the right one. So we also just leveled up again, and in a minute we'll show you what the two options are for this character, and we'll, see what the options we have. So we have Fragpocalypse and Embiggened Room. Out of the two, I just go with frag damage because it also procs for the missile damage, if I'm not mistaken, from a few tests. So we go into stealth mode, just shoot them like that, and then, you're all done. So with every boss, it's kind of a different experience, and you have to do different things to them. But this build allows you to kind of handle whatever is coming to you. We haven't tested it in any of the other missions yet. But I think on stream tomorrow, we're going to work a little bit more on builds with this character. There's a couple other characters we have lined up, like Montana, Wrath, which I think is going to be an awesome character to have some builds for. But we're going to have a lot of builds, and I think this character, Oscar Mike, he's not going to be outstanding in anything, but he's going to be pretty good in a lot of things. And when you're going through the campaign with 5 people, I feel he's going to be a staple in the loadouts or of the teams, just because of his survivability and just overall just damage output is pretty good. Not as potent as Montana or somebody like that, but he's easy to catch along to. He's one of the easier characters I've come across. Just learning. And his build is pretty straightforward and simple. There's a couple other characters that are just a ton of fun, but will be a little more complicated to learn. But once the beta opens and you're looking for a character to try out, I would highly suggest you try out Oscar Mike. Try out this build. It's not something very special, but it's something that you'll be able to hold your own no matter who you're playing against. You have pretty much all your main bases covered as far as, you know, survivability. I'm keep saying it. Survivability, damage output, and just overall, you know, fun with the character. This build, I think, so far is pretty good. You know, you probably will see a lot of people using something like this in the future. This is going to be something I'm going to be trying to do with every character. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I hope you enjoy the series that we are beginning with Oscar Mike, because this was the character we chose first. So the last one of the next bosses we have, which is the final boss of the algorithm story. Spoiler alert! Which is very similar. If you didn't notice, the last place was kind of similar to Tiny Tina's DLC's story. The area was, and this is kind of reminiscent. A lot of people in the stream, including myself, was like, this reminds me of the Sentinel battle, the location, the Sentinel battle in Borderlands, the pre-sequel. So there's a lot of, I don't know if they're homages or just kind of things that Gearbox wanted to keep from Borderlands, but there's a lot of this. The humor is there. I'm having a great time working on the characters, having a great time streaming the game. So if you have any questions about the build, any builds you want to see me do next, we're going to be doing all 25 characters. If you have a different build for Oscar Mike, let me know in the comments. So thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you rate, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.